Welcome, everyone. This is the VanderSpa webinar series. We're so glad you've joined us. Tonight we talk about windshield installation on Carmel and Venice. This is Steve, and we've got Devin assisting with video and audio, and also Jordan running our camera. Hope you enjoy the content. Troy.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Today I just kind of want to go over Windshield 101 on these machines to start with. Everybody is concerned, of course, about the health and wellness of their glass windshield, as well they should be. It's pretty easy to damage them if you're not being conscious about the environment, the handling, the care and feeding, etc. So let's dive into it just right away. We have a Carmel here. All Carmel models, whether it's base, GT, or GTS, come with this full height, I think it's about 18 inches tall glass from Vanderhall. This glass is automotive safety glass. There's actually two layers to the glass assembly. If you look at the top edge of the glass, you'll see that there's kind of a gap between two layers. There is an anti-lacerative coating in between the top and bottom layer of glass, and the glass is tempered, which means if the glass gets broken, it's probably just going to crack. It may crack into multiple pieces, but the anti-lacerative coating also acts kind of as a glue to keep the two layers of glass stuck to each other. In the research we've been doing about windshield technology in general, we've spoken to a few professionals about automotive glass, specifically as it relates to Vanderhall windshield assemblies. And at the end of the day, the feedback I got was the two layers of glass are probably just a little bit thinner than they should have been in order to handle the stress of the way that they're being asked to perform. Excuse me. So first things first, it's on the car, you just bought it. What kinds of stuff are we looking for to make sure that we think our windshield is in a good way? Okay. First off, when the windshield's mounted to the car on a Carmel, it can be set at different angles. As soon as the two bolts on either side are loosened, they are screwed into a pivoting nut block, and that allows angle change to be affected when you loosen those bolts. The windshield is typically pretty close to the body, but my guess is that when the Vanderhall was first envisioned, when the Carmel was first envisioned, they were probably planning on floating the glass off the top of the chassis the same way they do the Venice. I know we don't have telephoto ability here on this camera, but there's a gap all the way under the windshield on a Venice that allows you to stick almost your pinky finger up underneath it. And that is, I would call that a design element of the vehicle, that they just floated the glass across the top of the chassis. On the Carmel, the glass can be floated across the top of the chassis, but it depends on how high or low was the glass mounted in the brackets. On the Venice, the base bracket that holds the windshield was actually machined with a curve in it, and that curve limits how far down the windshield can go. So the gap on a Venice is pretty much enforced by the brackets that the windshield sits in. On a Carmel, the windshield brackets are also two-piece, but when the glass lays on the base bracket, there's nothing to keep it from sliding all the way down and actually touching either the dash pad or the bodywork. So my guess is that this is hand assembled by assembly people at Vanderhall, and they lay the glass onto the base bracket, and then they set the top bracket over the top of it, and they probably just eyeball where the glass is going to sit on the face of the machine. That results in misalignment errors. That results in the windshield being shifted off a little bit to the passenger side, or off a little bit to the driver's side. It also means that the windshield might be set kind of skew, where there's a larger gap on one side under the base of the glass than there is over on the other side. So a concern for windshield mounting is, was it put in the brackets well? The other thing that will become apparent as we dive into this a little further, we're going to take this windshield system off. We're being brave and just diving in on a glass windshield with factory mounting, and we're going to try to disassemble this with you guys watching, and we're going to retrofit a new rubber gasket, which I'm going to grab here so you can kind of see what it looks like. This, I'm coming over where the camera is. This is the Santa Rosa perimeter gasket. We call it a Santa Rosa gasket because Vanderhall has a prototype vehicle that they intend to build in production called a Santa Rosa, and a Santa Rosa is essentially an electric Carmel. One of the features of the Santa Rosa is it's scheduled to have windshield wipers, whereas your Carmel doesn't. And when windshield wipers sweep down, where's that water going to go? If the glass was just like it is on a Carmel, that would be sweeping the water down the face of the glass and asking it to come back in onto the occupants while you're driving down the road. So I don't know if you're able to see this gasket profile, but it has a flap on it here on what I'm going to call the face of the gasket. And when that's mounted against the windshield like this, that flap will catch the water that's swept down by the windshield wiper, and it'll channel it off to the sides. Now, what does that mean for those of you that are Carmel owners? We probably just tripped across this. Maybe Vanderhall did this on purpose. But this gasket can be flipped the other way. And if it's flipped the other way, when it lays onto the windshield, that flap that used to be sticking out like a bottom lip waiting to catch windshield wiper water ends up laying across the top of the dash pad, almost as if it was engineered to do that. At that point, we have the same profile of rubber all the way around the perimeter of the glass, down both sides and across the bottom. So on a Carmel, we at the VanderSpa choose to install this with this lip facing down towards the dash pad to encapsulate the glass. Now, how does Vanderhall insulate the glass right now? Right now, there are butyl rubber strips. I call them glossy black Velveeta cheese, and they lay in between the metal bracket and the glass itself to provide some cushion and some vibration isolation from getting to the glass, because the glass is going to get damaged if the metal of the brackets touches the glass. So we really want to have the glass enveloped so that the high vibration of this machine transferring through these steel brackets doesn't shatter metal to glass against this windshield.
Check your audio, make sure it's on.
Okay. Am I here or am I there? Or am I both? I'm here. Okay. Hey, everybody.
Ask John, it's still echoing.
John, is it still echoing when I talk? Have we corrected that? Okay, we're good. Sorry, we had two different sources of audio pickup there, so we apologize. Anyway, so we want the glass to be completely isolated and enveloped so that it doesn't get any hard vibration into the glass. So next thing to understand about the Carmel is it may look to you as though this top layer of steel is bolted to the car. But the reality is the top layer of steel is bolted to the bottom layer of steel by way of these three smaller screws that run up the length of the bracket. The two bolts down here are actually screwed into the base bracket, which is hiding back behind there. And there are just holes in the top bracket so that when the top bracket lays down over those bolt heads, they reveal or they press through and become visible here as kind of a design element. So that what that means for us is we can take these two bolts out, and the two-piece windshield bracket can still be clamped onto the glass on both sides. So for those of you that need to take the front end of your car apart, you need to take your hood off so that you can access the perimeter for whatever reason, whether it's to get to your fuse box better or to be able to access turbo accessories from Bad News Racing or put on a downpipe or whatever. All this stuff has to come off. When you take the windshield off, you would remove these two bolts and the two bolts on the other side, have a helper on the other side, and the two of you would pick it up and take it to a soft area where the curvature of the glass is supported. Next, let's talk about why is it so easy to break my windshield as it came from the factory. Couple of things to notice. The angle of this bracket is such that as the brackets come up, they come closer together. As they go down, they get further apart. So it was really important at assembly, in my opinion, for the base brackets to have been set at the exact angle they need to be at before the glass was laid down onto a butyl strip and before the top bracket was put down onto the bottom bracket. Because if we loosen these two bolts and we start changing the angle of the windshield, we're also changing the distance of the two side brackets from each other. So we could be trying to stretch the glass flatter or create more curve in the glass as we raise or lower the angle of the assembly. So in a perfect world, Vanderhall would have mounted the base brackets at a fixed angle, precisely chosen, and then they would have built up from there, laying the glass on and then laying the top brackets on, which is what we're going to do as part of our process here. I think what else I wanted to mention. Oh, I have seen two different characteristics in Carmel glass that are worth noting. First off, some of these windshields have curvature top to bottom. So it's not just curved left to right. It's almost domed, I guess is what you could say. It has some curvature going this way, okay? That's a problem because this bracket on top and the bracket on the bottom are perfectly flat. And if we're setting curved glass in between two perfectly flat pieces of steel, and then we go tightening the screws down to clamp that sandwich down, we're pressing down in the high spot in the middle, and we're trying to press the curve out of the glass. That may be great when you assemble it, but then you pull it outside and park it in the sun. Sun comes out, heats up everything, things expand. You come out from your restaurant and you got a crack in your windshield. Maybe because it was put together with a natural bind. Maybe somebody changed the angle of the windshield after the windshield was clamped between the brackets, and it's either being stretched or it's being compressed into a greater arc that basically sets up pre-tension in the glass. And I imagine that glass fatigues just like any other hard material, and it can only take stress for so long before it's going to fail. When they break, they typically only break one layer or the other of the glass. The windshield doesn't just cave in on you. It doesn't break into little pieces and cut up the occupants. It's not that kind of a risk. So most people that have a windshield crack, it's just going to be a crack in the top layer or the bottom layer, and the windshield will still maintain its curvature and its integrity and its wind resistance. But I don't know that I'd drive it that way for a long period of time. All right. So for those of you that have factory glass in factory black Velveeta cheese butyl rubber with no support across the bottom, what are you looking for on your machine first off, just to make sure it's kind of in a healthy spot? Couple of things I'll point out. And Jordan, can you swing this way just a little bit so you have a better angle on this? For those of you watching, there is a curvature in the plastic hood right here, kind of shaped like a J. And this curvature is what I would call a pretty significant suggestion for the desired angle of the windshield bracket. If the edge right here of the windshield bracket is not level with the edge of this curve right here. If it's too high or too low, we want these two angles, we want these two lines to be parallel to each other in order to get us in the wheelhouse of what's appropriate for the windshield to be mounted. Windshield angle comes into play more than just how does it suspend to the glass above the body, but it also comes into play with how's it going to interface for those of you that have a CapShade. Because if you have a CapShade, your CapShade has an indentation in it right here that nestles over the high spot in the roll bar. And if that high spot is pushed backwards where it doesn't nestle down on the roll bar because the windshield is too low, things aren't going to fit right. Things aren't going to snug up. You're going to have rattles and you're going to have stress. Conversely, if the windshield is too steep, then the nestle spot on your CapShade that's supposed to hug the roll bar is going to be ahead of the roll bar. And then you're probably dealing with some pretty good stress and bind in the top of the windshield here. At the end of the day, for those of you that have CapShades, when your CapShade is here and it's nestled on the curvature here, everything up in this area, you could almost loosen these two bolts and then press upward gently just to get a gentle bind between the thumb screw and pin that sets here and the pin that goes under the CapShade interface bracket, which is this piece of steel that's sticking up right here.
Hey guys, this is Devin behind the computer right now. I don't have a specific way to switch cameras over to the handy cam that Mr. Jordan over here has. But he is one of the panelists on this webinar, so if you guys want to just select on Jordan's video feed, which should be broadcasting right now, you should be able to switch over and look at exactly what's happening right now.
Great, thank you for that. We learn every time we do a webinar. And we hope you'll see the benefit of that learning month over month as we keep doing this. Okay, so risk to the windshield, number one, is windshield bracket being set at too steep an angle. Because then when you go to dovetail your CapShade into the receiving brackets here, and you start to lower it down onto the roll bars, as you're lowering the CapShade down to the roll bar, if you feel the CapShade getting lighter in your hands, that's a really good indication that it's starting to get diving board style leverage up here at the top of the windshield system, and we don't want that. So if you're laying the CapShade dovetail front and then lay it down towards the roll bar, and you start feeling it getting lighter, as if this interface up here is actually holding the CapShade off of the roll bars, you need to stop right there and evaluate, is my silver pin of my CapShade under the interface bar on the windshield bracket, and is my roller, my thumb screw roller, is it sitting in the top nestled down into this little valley right here? Super important that the pin's underneath and the roller's on top. Now, if you accidentally put the pin above here, or your helper does, and then they go to just slide it down in there like they're trying to latch it, they're going to knock the knurled edge of that thumb roller into the top of the windshield, and it will crack. 100%. People call once a month claiming, I was stupid, I wasn't paying attention, and I had the pin above the bracket and the roller hit the glass. So always have your silver pin below the interface bracket, roller above in the little saddle spot here. And then as you lower the CapShade down, as long as you've got no resistance, now look and see that the recess in the CapShade is centered up on the roll bar. If it's not, you can loosen your bolts and you can lift up a little bit, which will draw the CapShade forward in order to get that to nestle nicely. Another secret that we can talk about, Steve, hand me that Ziploc bag right there. No, the one in the middle. And then we'll move on. Okay. This is super simple, but this makes a big difference for those of you that are dealing with noise. This is windshield washer fluid tubing. And if you'll use a razor knife, the pin that slides under here on your CapShade, you can spit in here, get a little lubrication in there, slide it up onto the pin, and then cut it flush. And then that rubberized pin setting up against the base of this CapShade interface bracket will not chatter when you're driving down the road like you may experience with your system otherwise. But that also means that the angle of the windshield may need to be reduced just a little bit to make room for the rubber without generating any bind in this location or back here. So that's pretty much what we wanted to cover on dynamics here. Now let me just mention, for those of you that have, I'm going to grab a tool here. I've got this. Where's my tip?
Ready for you.
Okay. For those of you who have a factory Carmel and it's never been messed with and you don't know if it's too tight or not, you can take, I need one more tool. Thank you, sir. You can take a 10 millimeter wrench, put it on the acorn nut on the back side, and just go ahead and unscrew it a little bit. Then back out the screw at the top and then bring it back down. Here's the acorn nuts that we're talking about. We're backing the acorn nut off, then we're backing the screw out, and then we're running the screw back down just until we can feel resistance. Once you can feel resistance in the screw, stop there, and then come back and tighten your acorn nut as a jam nut. What we're doing now is locking the screw into the base bracket. Because the base bracket is threaded, the top bracket is not.
So let me mention something. There's actually 3 pieces of metal right there, and the base bracket is the center one in the sandwich. It's not the top shade.
It's not the
keeper
CapShade
bracket.
interface bracket. Yeah.
So we're drawing the sandwich together, the 2 windshield brackets together with the threads, and then the acorn nut is just securing the CapShade bracket to the sandwich.
Right. But it's also locking the screw rotationally.
That's right.
So that it
Snaps
doesn't
is
back
all.
out or it doesn't go in tighter. The other thing we recommend is if you're going to go through this process, you need to go ahead and use blue thread lock and put it inside the acorn nut and put it back on, so that once you get it set at very, very gentle tension on the screw and you lock it down with the acorn nut will get glued to the screw and nothing will loosen up on you. But it also won't tighten up on you, because we want to give the glass all the space that it wants to have in between these 2 pieces of steel.
All right, let's get going.
All right. Okay.
Still not able to see panelists for some reason.
Not able to see what?
Panelists, aka that camera.
Okay.
Wrenches.
You want this?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to start moving.
This recording will be spotlight. There we go. Now it's active.
Oh, good. Thank you.
All right, am I live? I think I'm live.
Your mic says you're live.
Okay. So we're going to start this process. We've got a half an hour to do this. We'll see if we can get it done. By removing the rear brackets and the 10 millimeter acorn nuts. I'll mention a couple of things while we're doing this. I have the distinct honor of breaking probably 3 or 4 windshields.
And I've
I'm not-
broken 2.
I'm not happy about that, but I've learned how to avoid making some mistakes. One of them is, if your windshield is already cracked, let me restate that. If your windshield is pitted, you run a much higher risk of cracking your windshield, and I can help you figure out a way not to do that. Pits are normally going to happen on the front side, right? Because you're hitting objects or objects are hitting you. If you put your windshield and rest it with the curvature up, it's going to cause stress on this front pane of glass. And so if you want to keep from having your coming out to the shop and finding your windshield cracked when it wasn't cracked before. Make sure you lay your glass on its face on a couple of pieces of foam. You really don't want to suspend it by the ears or by the edges. Just put it right in the center on a piece of foam, and it'll reduce that amount of chance of having those
Body
formed
image.
stress cracks. Yep. Okay, what we're doing right now is removing the fasteners that hold this sandwich together. So you can see that I can take off. This is the CapShade
Interface bracket.
And I still have a full sandwich here. I'm going to use a power tool to kind of speed this up a little bit.
For people who own a Carmel Blackjack, all this information is pertinent to you if you ever want to go to a full-size windshield, whether or not you want to do a CapShade. And if you aren't doing a CapShade, then you don't have to use the CapShade interface bracket. So you can get away with shorter screws.
Ta-da! That's the outer CapShade bracket. So I didn't even have to remove these 8mm bolts. If you do want to remove the whole piece of glass, you can do it that way as Troy described earlier. Just make sure when you do, and you're taking out these two, you have someone on the other side to support the glass, and you can take the whole assembly off at one time. All right, while Troy's doing that, can you focus over here real quick, Jordan? We're installing this Santa Rosa gasket. This is available through VanderSpa for about, what is it, Troy? $90?
Yeah, the Santa Rosa gasket's $89.95 plus shipping.
$89.95 plus shipping. I would recommend this for anyone who has glass. It also works really well for F4 windshields, the polycarbonate windshield. It just holds the glass better. It has a very nice formed and shaped contour that will close the gap on the bottom. It's really easy to install, and I just absolutely love it. It holds the windshield so much more secure. Over here, we've got a mirror relocation kit, and we've kind of got it spread apart, but you've got for the Blackjack, or if you want to, or on the Carmel of any model, we provide these door covers with some felts that you can put underneath there. We also include the hardware.
Yep, and those take the place of your door mirrors.
Yep, the factory OEM mirror bars. Then we've got the mirror relocation arms left and right. These are specified and designed by VanderSpa. Black powder coated finish with threads in there for the mirrors. And then I'm going to mess up the name on this. Kuryakyn mirrors.
There you go. You did it.
These are the bee's knees as far as mirrors go. I love how they look, and I love how the rear view looks. They're panoramic, convex mirrors that really open up the back end of the machine, and you can see traffic really well.
Let's look at the back side of this bracket that Steve took off. I want to show something here.
Yeah.
Can everybody see this?
That's the least I've ever seen on there.
Well, what's even a little funnier here? This, ladies and gentlemen, is a urethane strip from a Venice windshield. It's like a little Nike swish. And Jordan, if you'll pan over, well, I can show you.
There's two of them laid
This is what was used on the front side of the glass. Come on over to the windshield here, and you can see the ones on my side. Just a couple of pieces of butyl rubber strip, and these are discontinued from Vanderhall, so I'm not really wanting to tear them up. I'd kind of like to save them because we need them for Venice. So if we can use a razor knife or something to get them off in a way that salvages them instead of tearing them, that would be awesome. We did. Yeah. Do we have a razor? We had a razor blade out here, so we can strip the rubber off without it sticking to the glass. It's kind of coming for us.
I've got last 2 inches up here.
Okay. Yes, please. It doesn't matter. Just anything that will help me get under here so we can get these off and
You're trying to preserve those.
So we're just gonna gently give this a little cutting motion to separate it from the glass. Notice I'm going real almost parallel to the glass because I don't want to cut the glass. I don't want to put lines in the glass or scratch it. There we go. Now it's off. So there's one. And then the other is going to come off. The back rubber on these windshields appears to be more conventional butyl strips like Vanderhall would have used on both sides of the glass if they had it. But the butyl kits from Vanderhall are not available anymore for glass for Carmel or glass for
How adhered?
Venice.
How adhered is yours on your side?
I'm checking. That's the next thing is how stuck are we to the base glass? And we're pretty stuck. So we may actually want to go ahead and take the bracket off, take the windshield off the car so we can apply some leverage to the metal independent of the glass so it doesn't
I'm just
break.
stuck right here, but I don't think we want to peel the whole thing off.
Yeah, we have to be careful that we don't invite a crack here. So as you can see, the top metal just came right off real easy, but the bottom side is stuck pretty well. So we're gonna remove this, go over to our table here and coax this off a different way.
So this is an 8mm.
8mm hex drive, yeah.
These are put on with 50 foot-pounds of torque. And I don't know if Troy told you this yet, but the windshield angle that we start with is 32 degrees.
Yep.
And the way you measure it is from the door sill with the car without any load in it or any suspension.
I'll illustrate that in just a second. The main thing is we want to use the threshold as a reference point. And we've got to figure out what angle the threshold's at and then zero out the level.
Yep.
Steve, can you hold the angle for me?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So as soon as I loosen this second bolt, the windshield is free to pivot. And Steve will be able to illustrate that now that we've got it loose. You see, we can go up and down with the windshield now. And it's not just because the hardware is loose, it's because the nut, there's a butterfly nut on the back side there that has two holes in it with a pivot point in the middle. And that is what's continuing to hold it. So we're going to go ahead and back these out. We always take the hardware and we put it in the cup holder. It's a really good place to keep track of the hardware that you took off when you're doing this procedure. Now that we got the screws out on both sides, we can raise it and carry it over to our table here.
And am I going to face it face up or face down, folks?
Well, in order to get those brackets off, probably face down.
Okay. Face down.
And one thing that we can do and may do is grab a hair dryer or a heat gun and warm this up to try to coax the brackets off, because there is a chance that just don't be in a hurry just because we're on a webinar.
I'm gonna break my 5th windshield.
I don't want to break my first.
Yeah, slow and steady wins the race. We don't care about saving the urethane, so if it tears, just let it tear.
It's the only thing holding it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna come in here and see if we can get any little bit of separation to start. I think your side was.
Yeah, I got lucky. So we want to take off the urethane. We want to start with a clean blank windshield mount as we put on that. Do you need some help over here?
I'm getting loose now. As soon as one end gets loose, then it really starts to migrate from there.
You really want to go slow.
Just go slow and let the tool do the work.
We're at what temperature is it in here right now?
About 75, yeah.
So that's a good working temperature. Obviously, the warmer, the better.
Doing this out in the summertime heat would actually be great. So if you have a warm garage, warming up the parts helps a lot. All right, so we're basically just stuck with the rubber. There we go.
Okay.
All right, so we've got that now. We've got our glass separated. I'm just going to use my fingers and roll off some of this stuff. In the world of perfectionists, we would go through and just make all this baby butt clean, but it's going to have a gasket surrounding all this stuff. So we'll get a rag here in just a second and go around the perimeter, get that wiped down in preparation to put our rubber seal on.
All right, Jordan, I'm going to hand tighten these back in. If you can get a shot right here. You might have some frustration if that mount plate moves. Its pivots right here. So if you get, I think like an 1/8 inch or a 3 millimeter, 2.5 millimeter, you can actually turn it, or I've used a pick before to orient that plate. But ideally you want to get the threads in there, then just hand thread these back in. And as Troy said, follow the contour of this line, just make it equidistant, and you'll be pretty close. You'll be within 2 or 3 degrees. Now, these I'm actually going to snug down finger tight and show you how to use everyone has one of these protractors in their pocket. You just go to the level, open the door, set it on the sill, make sure it's at 0.
Happens to be.
Then you come up and set it right on the bend line, and we're at 31 degrees. Honestly, that's my favorite. 32 is where we start, but I've had the most luck, especially shipping cars that don't have the CapShade. I just choose 1 degree lower than normal so that there's no chance of this top glass being pinched and pulled down into the tops of these brackets, which can cause the problem. If it zeroes on again, just come down and cause it to just hit 0 again, come up here. You can get some variation if you come out here. So I just do it right on the bend line to the metal. Now, some of you may be asking, what about my buttons? The answer there is do it the same way here as you do here. So don't tilt it this way, tilt it right back to the same orientation. So that's what we're looking at, is 31 degrees. At that point, I'm going to snug these all the way up to 50 degrees. Sorry, 50 foot bounce, correction. And 31, because we don't have the, this is a machine that we don't have the CapShade for. And you can change them later. So I'm going to adjust this to 50. Need my bike.
The other thing I'll mention, I think I'm still live here. It is not uncommon for these bolts to have been cross-thread going into the nut plates. And don't just put them on the end of your impact or your power drill and just go gangbusters into the side of the car. You need to start them by hand so that you can feel that everything is where it ought to be. It's also worth noting, and I know, Steve, you're already tight, but maybe Jordan, you can come over here for a second.
Right.
When you get done looking at his angle there, come take a look at my intersection over here. There is some play vertically. It's not much. It's millimeters, but there is up and down play in the bracket too. Probably more intended if that set screw in there was loosened up a little bit. Anyway, we'll get that approximately eyeballed right there. And now I need the 8 millimeter
There you go.
wrench, please.
All right, while you're doing that, I'm going to mention to them that this gasket will actually fit upside down or right side up. What I mean by that is this way or this way.
And we talked about that in the beginning. Why does it have to go
in practice?
Yeah.
So this is upside down. This is not the correct.
This is upside down for a Carmel, but it's right side up for a Santa Rosa. With this flap sticking up like this. So on a Carmel, we're going to flip it and we're going to let it lay on this way.
Yep. So the contour,
So that flap that used to be a rain gutter catcher for windshield wipers is now laying down
Yeah.
against the pad.
and you have a nice seal. It's going to come, when it actually sits in the glass, it's going to sit just forward of the part line between the vinyl and the body, and it fills it, and it makes it quieter. Of course, you don't have the turbulence that you're getting through there, and it works really well. So the idea is we're going to put this on the glass, and then we're going to just set the glass and the gasket on the car just like this. But I want
On the
you to see-
brackets at the preset angle.
Yep. All right. So couple of tricks here. Start at one end and start at the corner, and then work upward on the windshield and then across the bottom of the windshield. And when you think it's seated, it probably could use just a little bit more.
Another thing I'm going to show. Vanderhall has some adhesive, some stickum down in the valley of this to try to invite the gasket to stay stuck onto the glass once you get it there. So it's best not to just slide it. It's best to press it straight into place, because if you slide it, you're sliming that adhesive around. And we want to try to not disturb the adhesive bead and let it stick straight on the way it wants to.
You're going to come back and really cinch it up once it's all the way in, because there will be some sliding. We're trying to prevent that by putting it on like this, but it will
So now we'll
move a little bit.
Right. Is it okay if we just stand this up?
Sure.
This surface right here, and then we can just press down gently to nestle around the perimeter. Okay, you good with that?
Yep. I'm trying to get straight edges and any wobble out of it.
Yep.
And any stretch.
And it's,
Now's a great time to do that.
yeah, and like any rubber product, this stuff's gonna conform and naturalize and fall into a happy place on its own as time goes by. But we at least want to get it stuck in the right general vicinity to start with. All right, I start high and I just slide it down until it comes into contact with the body. And then we can start looking at what is our left-right attitude in relation to the brackets. And for me, I'm overhanging the bend in this bracket at the top just a little bit. What does yours look like?
Yours looks a little high elevated.
Okay,
Even though it's
so
stretched.
I'll come down. So the top of the gasket with the top of the bracket.
Yep. And I'm equidistant at the top and bottom, about 1/8 of an inch.
Okay.
A little bit wider gap.
So I need to push over just a little bit. Okay, so we have a little bit of bracket revealed here and then almost none at the top. Do you have bracket revealed at the bottom and then none at the top on your side?
I've got none at the bottom and some at the top.
Interesting. I'm going to go over
Yeah,
there and look
we're
at
just going to
Steve
go look at each other's sides.
This is how we do comparative analysis to see, are we centered or where are we?
Yeah. So I've got lots more over here. So
Yeah, and the brackets are straight.
they actually can flex, and I've used that to my advantage in the past
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, they will bend.
Okay.
All right. You can also look from the inside and see that you have equal corner appearance with the way the gasket comes down in the corner on each side. Over here, our two corners are almost touching. Over there, our two corners are like a 1/2 inch apart from each other. So it's almost like the bottom of the gasket could go your way just a little bit.
Yeah. So I would make these two equidistant. Is that what you're trying to do?
Right. Well, I'm
Because
I'm just trying to get the windshield centered on the car.
Yeah. So this would be the closest center.
Yeah.
And then we can actually flex these as we put it together.
Okay. Well, everybody needs to be reminded that these chassis are not built by robots. This is not military spec, plus or minus 1/2 millimeter precision construction on these chassis. So you kind of just have to eyeball it, and you have to budget your differences across the two different sides of the car. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, the bracket is
So
down
I'm
here.
gonna set this bracket in place. I can tell I forgot to bring something just to see how it goes. Now, with the Santa Rosa gasket, when this is all buttoned up, you're going to see that these are no longer flush. That's perfectly normal because the width of the gasket is going to show up here. And we're actually going to, there's also a gap here that's about, 4 millimeters, and we're going to compensate for that with the hardware kit. So this one is going to, I could take the top of my glass. The brackets need to spread at the top a little bit.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and put it onto the heads of the bolts down low and then press inward with it until it nestles.
So we're just test fitting these. We still need to put the hardware on it at this point.
Right. I'm going to build some hardware real quick.
Yep.
I don't think this bracket will go anywhere, even though it's not screwed down.
I would
remember that
I'd take it off and let's build it right here.
Okay.
All right. So this is the building blocks. You take your 30 millimeter screws.
Provided by us.
Each one gets one nylon washer on them. I need 3 per side.
One nylon washer under the head of the screw, passed into the bracket.
Then you're going to stack 3. If you got some chapstick or glue stick, that helps glue these enough, just adhere these enough together that you're not fighting all 9 of them at the same time. I didn't think of that for our demonstration purposes, so we're gonna show you what it looks like.
We'll wing it. Yeah.
All right.
So
we got one more over there.
One under the head of the screw, 3 in between the sandwich, top and bottom bracket, to create the space that we're trying to give the gasket and the glass to live within so that they don't have to be in a stressed environment. Because we don't want to clamp the glass. We want it to have room to stretch, breathe, vibrate a little bit, find a happy resting place where it doesn't feel bound up.
And we want the 2 brackets to be parallel to each other.
Right. Keeps the brackets parallel.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. I got 3 screws with 4 plastic washers on each, one on the outboard
If I
side,
can
3
do
in the middle.
this. So if it looks like we're poorly, see, I've lost some already. I need 4. I lost several. The chapstick trick works really well.
The other thing I'll mention while we're doing this, if you take your screws out of your windshield and the threads are all shined up because the precision of the threads that were cut in the base bracket is not good, then you need to get a M6 thread chaser and run it through the holes in the base bracket so that your new screws will go in nicely without it trying to attack the thread system of the new screw. Because we don't want this stuff to be damaging the hardware when we're putting it together.
Troy, this would be a good time to discuss what options they have for mirror reload brackets.
Yep. Well, we're gonna implement that in just a minute, but I'll go ahead and grab one and we can be talking about it while we're putting these together. Our mirror relocation bracket system. Let's see, you got 4 people on that side of the car, so I'm going to stay over here. Jordan, why don't you come over here for just a second while they're just working on the tedious stuff there. The mirror relocation bracket can be mounted in this low position outboard,
push,
high position outboard, low position inboard under the head of the acorn nuts, high position inboard, or you could even sandwich it between the 2 layers of the bracket if you're using the Santa Rosa gasket. And at that point, you would use the thickness of the mirror relocation bracket and 1 more washer instead of a stack of 3 that would allow you to tuck this up in here. It's just a matter of personal preference whether you go outboard, inboard, or sandwich. But I don't know that I would sandwich it. If you've got a mirror assembly that's already a windshield assembly that's already put together, then pull your screws out and put them back through on the top side or run them on the bottom side. But don't try to just pull stuff apart just to put the bracket in between. That's more trouble than it's worth. We also, follow me over here to the table. We also have, in the kit is included these precision cut pieces of foam that fit the footprint of the bracket. So if you're going to mount the bracket on the top of your windshield bracket, this hard surface screwed down into the other hard surface will have some insulation to try to preserve the finish on your factory windshield brackets. You don't need to use this if you're coming from the back side, but if you're coming from the top, we provide it for that purpose. We also did the same thing on the door inserts that go in place of your factory mirror on a Carmel. This is also where it would say Blackjack on a Vanderhall Blackjack that has the mirrors mounted to the short little windshield. Yes, sir.
Question.
Okay, John.
Can you describe what type of rubber the gasket is made from? Is it a foam rubber or more of a solid rubber?
Okay.
On the Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa gasket is molded hard rubber. It's not quite as hard as tire rubber, but it's definitely dense. It's not like foam. It's like it's like rubber that was injection molded, and it's pretty resilient. It doesn't have a lot of smash to it. It's not like foam rubber that you can squeeze between your fingers. So hopefully that helps answer. I would call it like bicycle tire rubber or something. You're welcome. Yeah, we actually have a durometer that we use to measure things like engine mounts and tire rubber compounds. But oh, the other thing, when you get an MRK from us, we include the extended length hardware to be able to go through the additional thickness of the bracket, as well as blue thread lock so that you can thread lock anything from an acorn nut perspective on the backside. And of course, like you saw, we include 31 typically of the little 4mm nylon washers to be able to go in to act as insulating and spacing for the kit. Another thing I'll show you, the Kuryakyn mirrors. These are satin black. We've got satin black mirror brackets to match, and they have already been tapped for the 1/4 20 thread size of the Kuryakyn mirror. So we can screw the mirror in all the way, and once the mirror stem bottoms out, then you would come back in with a 1/4 20 acorn nut that we also provide in the kit. Put a little blue thread lock on the stem that's sticking out the back, tighten it down, hold the front side with, I think it's an 8mm end wrench and then a 10mm end wrench or socket, and you can bind it down onto the tab so that when you go to try to change the horizon of your mirror, you're not trying to unscrew it from the arm of the bracket system.
That's an 11.
Oh, it's an 11. That's right. It's 11 on the acorn nut. And 11 and 7, not 10 and 8. Sorry about that. Okay, so these are what we're going to be going on with next. We're going to put these on the interior side. I think it'll be easier to fit the bracket if we don't have the mirror attached to it. Beautiful.
It actually might be 11.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to the passenger side here. Got to put our CapShade interface bracket in first.
So while Troy was talking, I made a couple of adjustments, and you capture the left side or the right side first with the glass no closer to the bend than about 1/8 of an inch. You don't want the bend of the bracket to be overlapping, being undercut by the glass. And so then I tightened these to their, I don't know how many foot-pounds or inch-pounds it would be, but snug. And then I leave that one a little bit loose. And then I walk around to that side of the car, and then I adjust the upper position of this bracket to match this one. So that, Jordan, if you want to film right here, this gap is similar on both sides of the glass. Both sides of the windshield. Like this. This one I think might be a little bit closer than that one. And you can actually snug it in just slightly.
Just lift up on it.
And that will hold it. So the windshield is actually gripped, but it's still somewhat floating. It's not hard mounted.
And for the sake of time, we're just going to kind of mock this up quickly. We're not putting thread lock on the acorn nuts like we typically would, because we just want to show you how it all goes together. Would you grab me a mirror, please?
Have you got a nut?
I don't have an acorn nut out right now, but it's okay. Yeah, but those are the 6 millimeters that hold the windshield bracket on. 1/4 20, anything that goes on a Harley has to be US thread type or standard American equivalent, or else they don't want to buy it. So Vanderhall didn't subscribe to that because it's mostly metric, but Kuryakyn mirrors are definitely standard. And your 6 millimeter acorn nut's not going to screw onto the back of it. However, I will make this comment. If you're still using your factory mirrors with the MRK, it will pass through there because a 6 millimeter screw is actually a little bit smaller than 1/4 20. So we're not forcing you to use a Kuryakyn mirror with these brackets. You can use any mirror you want to that'll fit inside a 1/4 20 or smaller opening, or you could use a drill bit and just open up the hole a little bit. So I'm just going to leave that there and close this door, and people will be able to see the different relative attitude of the mirror. So now when I go to get in my Carmel, I don't have to walk around the mirror bracket sticking me in the crotch just to clear the door to get in here. And when I open the door, I'm not banging the mirror into the car next to me, so I have more width to open the door to get out when I'm in a parking space. And this is the interior low position, but it could have been high, outside, inside, low, or high. Okay. Devin, can you look and see if we have any other questions that we ought to be attending to now that we're kind of at the end of our time window? We'll hang out here a little bit longer and take questions from people about any of this process that we've been through. No questions. Does anybody have any questions? Can I just ask? Are there questions? Is anybody dying to ask a question that's completely unrelated to what we've done so far? We know that there's lots of different Vanderhalls out there, but based on the kind of phone calls we get and the pain points that people have working on their machines, windshields on a Carmel is like one of the #1 things we spend our time on the phone talking about during the week. So we thought we'd try to get some data out there for you.
James, you say F4 versus glass. What question do you have about it? I can tell you that both will fit in the Santa Rosa gasket, and the F4 is made much more vibration resistant with the Santa Rosa gasket. To
compare and contrast them, I'll speak to that because I get that question a lot.
Sure.
Glass naturally, of course, holds its structural curvature a little bit better than any plastic will. Excuse me. The F4, when installed in the gasket material that comes with it, is going to sag down and it's going to rest on your dash pad or your hood, depending on how high you set it in the brackets before you clamp your top and bottom bracket together. And when you put your brackets together, that'll probably push some bow into the polycarbonate that it didn't want to have when you first laid it on there. You almost have to invite it to have the curvature it needs to have to lay in there. But then once you've got it bracketed up, it fits nicely. We resell. We are a dealer for F4, and we're also a dealer for Vanderhall. So we try to be as objective as we can about the differences between them as we can. Kind of depends on the personal preference of the person. Some people have had a windshield break from Vanderhall and they said, I don't ever want that to happen again. That was a pain in the butt. So they'll buy the F4 and they'll be perfectly happy with it. Some people have bought the F4 and they don't like the curvature or the waviness that it can have. If you're driving down the road with your CapShade off, there's a little bit more movement in the F4 windshield than there is in the glass. But as Steve said, I would be a proponent of doing an F4 with the Santa Rosa gasket. I think that's probably your best play if you want to do polycarbonate.
We have a question from Cheryl. Is there a good gasket to fill the gap on the Venice?
Hi, Cheryl. Thank you. I knew she was going to join us tonight, and I thought, what can we do to talk about stuff Cheryl's going to be excited to hear? Let's pan over here to this guy for a minute. So glass on a Venice has a nice curvature and it maintains a gap. There's a question that people ask all the time. What can I put across the bottom to seal that gap, because I don't want water to come in on me and I don't want air blowing in on me? Well, number one, you're in a Roadster. So I have only so much, I can only resonate with that so much. Number two, when wind comes along here, if you were to watch in a wind tunnel, when wind comes across the top of a vehicle and then it hits a different plane like that, it asks the wind to actually rise and it creates vacuum in here. So if we sprinkled a bunch of water in here and then we got out on the highway going 60 miles an hour, those dots of water are just going to sit there. They do not go under the glass. And you can also hold your hand up in there and feel, and you don't feel hot or cold air blowing in under your windshield. But if you want to seal it, more power to you. There are so many different kinds of weather strip gaskets out there that we don't try to pick one and say that's the one to use. I've seen one that was basically a flat piece of rubber, but it had two different strips of adhesive so that one layer could lay here and one layer could lay here, and they would naturally have a hinge between them. I think somebody found that on Amazon and they just cut it to length. So they were literally sticking it to the body and sticking it to the glass. I'm kind of interested in the finish on my Vanderhall remaining glossy and beautiful, and anything that I put along the base of the glass that sits down onto the plastic is going to catch grit, sand, bugs, dust, just general debris flying at that lead edge. It's going to get up under there and it's going to start marring the finish of the cowl on your Venice. So I don't like the idea of putting a gasket down here and sealing the glass to the body, because I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze and you're asking for finish damage on your bodywork. There obviously is channeled rubber that you can buy where you could temporarily disconnect the windshield from the body by removing these two large bolts on either side, and you could slide the channeled rubber across the bottom and then set it back down, and it'll lay into this little groove right here, but that groove is still going to catch debris. I don't know if Jordan can see. At one point I had a gasket or a polycarbonate windshield on this vehicle, but there are scratches down here on my cowl behind the glass where my finger is from having a gasket there that ended up tearing up the factory finish on these plastic panels. Okay. Another thing I'll point out on this particular Venice, this Venice has what I'll call first generation mirror brackets on it. There's two different ways that Venices hold their mirrors. And Jordan, if you'll just go back to the front, I call this a boomerang bracket. It actually acts as holding the glass into the base bracket and also sticks out the side and supports the mirror in a low slung position, which I think is really sexy. The other type of windshield brackets that Vanderhall put on these ended up with kind of an apostrophe bracket here, just shaped like what's revealed out from behind my hand. And then they have a bracket that lays here under these two bolts, and then it comes up like a gull wing and sticks up high, and it holds the mirror more up in this position. Those were more popular on the later years of Venice than they were on the early years. And frankly, they're called the Speedster bracket because when you have a Vanderhall Speedster and you have bodywork over here going down the right side, the bodywork blocks your view of the mirror on the right side if you have these low slung boomerang brackets. But if you have the gull wing brackets that come up high, it holds the passenger side mirror high enough that you can clearly see it over the tonneau cover of a Speedster. So I've always just called them Speedster brackets, but either one of them can be fit to a Venice. It's just a question of, do you have the one-piece bracket or do you have two pieces with the gull wing and then the apostrophe bracket that holds the glass in place? They also have gloss black and brushed steel clear-coated versions of the gull wing bracket, whereas these brackets are either satin black like this, or they may still have chrome mirror bracket kits from Vanderhall where this entire wing or boomerang here was chrome plated. They did that a lot back in like 2018 when they had chrome kits for these with chrome bezels on the gauges, chrome mirror brackets, chrome roll bars, chrome suspension pivots. Some of those pieces are still available from Vanderhall if you like the classic 60s vintage feel of really going to town with the chrome. All right. We're kind of about 5 minutes before we're going to shut this down. What other questions do we have from people across the entire Vanderhall spectrum? It doesn't have to be windshields or glass or mirrors or mirror mounting. I know lots of people had unique questions, but we just can't do it in an hour and 15 minutes.
Michael has a question about repair work in the Wilmington, North Carolina area. Said both previous dealers are no longer able to do repair work. Any suggestions close to a repair shop in that area?
Okay, I have repair shop recommendations in general. To your specific question, I would say that we have some contacts in Tennessee that are pretty savvy with Vanderhalls. They buy a lot of parts and accessories from us to help them work on Vanderhalls for other people. They are Vanderhall owners themselves. This is a small enough a community. I don't mind giving them a shout out. It's Jay Beebe of Beebe's Garage in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Kelly Brooks works on them as well. Both of those gentlemen are, a reasonable drive from the Carolinas. I can't think of anybody in North Carolina off the top of my head, but let me just speak to the people who own a Vanderhall. Which camera am I live on? I feel like I'm just staring off into the third wall over here. Okay, so if you own a Vanderhall and you don't have a Vanderhall specialist to take it to where you are, look for independent, ma and pa, family-owned, boutique auto service companies. They're going to be the people that work on Jaguar, MG, Lotus, more obscure, lower volume, quirky European cars. Those people will work on anything. They'll work on World War II Jeeps. They'll work on Volkswagen Bugs. They're not afraid of you bringing them a cool, unique project because their walls are just covered with pictures of the unique things that they've worked on. Those people, in conjunction with phone support from the VanderSpa, are usually willing to consider whatever the project is that needs to be done on your car. You just have to let them know you've got a subject matter expert that you can hire for phone consult, and we'll support them in supporting you with whatever the work is that you need to do on your machine. So I think we have another question that we're looking at here to see if we want to address it. And what's our time window? Can we stay here until people are done with questions? I'm happy to keep taking questions.
Yeah, we're actually over about that amount of time. Someone asked about the brake light pin, that if we have those available. I can say yes, we've got probably 20 pins in stock if you're looking for the rear brake light for either a Vanderscreen or some other product you want to put on there. We charge $25 for those, and we'll just mail you a 12-inch lead with the instructions of where to plug that into your BCM.
Right. Yeah, the body control module sits right about here. You got to take your outer hood off, your inner cowl off, and then there's a particular pin location in there. On the original GM harness, it's already got wire coming out that goes to nowhere. So you can trim it and tap into it for a third brake signal. For those of you that have the harnesses that were thinned down when Vanderhall had to subcontract and build their own, that pin position is completely empty. So we provide you the pin to slide up into the plastic shell to interface with the male that's in the body control module so that you can tie in there and get the hot that you need to drive a discrete third brake light 12-volt signal, because you can't just tap into the taillights. They are left channel and right channel specific, and your third brake light device is always going to resonate with whichever side you tied into on the back. So that's not really a good long-term solution.
So for those of you with the early harnesses, we have actually supplied these same pin units for those cars. In fact, when I'm doing one of those cars, rather than unwrap the cable wrap, I just pull that pin out and insert that new pin.
Slide a new pin
Slide
into
a new
place
pin.
of the old one.
It's even
Yeah,
easier than trying to
that's
dig it out. So
that's a good point.
no matter which harness you have, it's easy to just put the new pin, the new lead into it.
And the calendar delineation point is probably somewhere between the first half of 23 and the second half of 23 for production date. Let's talk about that real quick. When was my Vanderhall made? When you guys post on social media, when you message us, when you text me, when you email, please go to the trouble to look in your glove box. Reach under the little felt carpet in the bottom, and you'll see that there's a decal there. And that decal declares your VIN number. And in the top right corner on this car, this one was made in 5 of 22. Okay. That tells us when did this go across the assembly line. If it's early 23 or older, you probably have the full GM harness. If it's a mid 23 or later, you probably have the subcontracted harness that's been thinned down, and they just wanted to save money and not put pins and wires in places that the car doesn't need. Anything else crop up? Anybody else have a hand raised?
We have one about thank you for the webinar and the repair information. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Kudos. Appreciate that very much. And then James has, let's make this our final question. Do you have a status update on Vanderhall windshield back orders?
Thank you. I was just thinking he's probably going to ask about windshield.
It is apropos.
That's right.
Talking about windshield.
So speaking of windshields, it's my understanding from my last conversation with somebody who's supposed to know that by the end of the second week of April, is that right? What is today?
We're at the end of the second
we're at the
week
end
of
of,
April.
we're at the, okay. The second week of May, I'm sorry.
Yep.
In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, there's supposed to be a delivery of all the windshields necessary to flush out all back orders that Vanderhall has, plus 100. So we're going to stock up so we don't run out and then have to keep telling people it's still on back order, it's still on back order. But the answer is we're supposed to have light at the end of the tunnel in a couple of weeks.
All right. Thanks, James. And thanks for all of you that stuck with us to the end. We hope this was valuable. This is Steve Eldridge and Troy Stepp, and we thank our crew, Devin and Jordan, for helping us put this together.
That's right.
And yeah, you'll see this on YouTube, so you can go back and look at it. Shoot us an email. Shoot us any questions you've got. We're here to help you enjoy your Vanderhalls. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Keep the sticky side stuck, everybody. Thank you.